o'clock. A little bit of a different time today because we got a whole bunch of stuff going on the YouTube channel, which is all the more reason that you guys should be liking this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel because if you want content for MMA, we've got MMA Live Before Lock coming up later. If you want content for NFL preseason action, we've got NFL preseason Live Before Lock also later on the day. It's a little bit of a weird time slot for MLB. And, you know, we've also got a smaller baseball slate. So that's one of the other reasons the other sports are getting some higher priority. But for sure, if you guys have any questions, fire them into the Slack chat at me, at Gundacker. If you have questions in the YouTube chat, ask those away. Also, I think we should be able to get to them today. But without further ado, we're going to talk about tonight's main slate. But first, Gundacker, how you doing today?
Happy Saturday afternoon. Definitely a little bit earlier. Usually when me and you do a little party, I get to sleep in a little longer. That wasn't the case. So hoping this bank can kick in and do some work because it's a medium-sized slate, right? We can still have fun, but it never fails. Kyle Freeland is, if we do a show, he's pitching. Like I don't know how that works, but it's a thing.
And this is a weird pitching slate. Honestly, I mean, Kyle Freeland, I don't even mind that he's on the slate. The guy that I really mind is Joe Musgrove. Let's just start there with this guy who, I mean, also something else that we have to mention, DraftKings FanDuel, 6-game slate for FanDuel locks at 6:45 Eastern time. And then the DraftKings one does not include the Cincinnati-Miami game. So a little bit different stuff to talk about there. But first, let's get into Joe Musgrove, because for my money, there is nobody who's harder to predict in MLB DFS. There's no rhyme or reason to this guy, whether he's good, whether he's bad. He just goes out and sometimes he dominates good teams. Sometimes he sucks against bad teams. Last time out against the Arizona Diamondbacks, scores 0 fantasy points, gets lit up. So Joe Musgrove, popular play, and I'm going to be on him. I'm going to be a little bit underweight to the field just because he's going to be in about 50% of the field's lineups on DK. But what do you make of this guy?
Yeah, no, the frustration is definitely there. I've seen some speculation on some starts where his hat looks a little different than other starts. Maybe there's a list of umpires who check hats more than others, and he knows that when this guy's umping to wear a different hat. If you catch my drift, but yeah, no, he's definitely a wide range of outcome type of guy. Unfortunately, when we list like the talent tiers on this slate, there's really only a couple of 2-3 guys we see with like a true ceiling, and he's one of them. So you have to play him. But I also think on a slate this small, it's not going to be that hard to hedge against it and have some of those Phillies stacked to run back and just accept it. Whatever happens, and you got your bases covered. But yeah, I'm in full agreement. He is frustratingly variable day to day.
Yeah, and I mean, I think especially in baseball, in a really high variance sport, it's okay to look at the slate sometimes and go, hey, there's some stuff I don't know, because anybody who says they've gotten Joe Musgrove right every slate is either from the future, they're a wizard, or they're lying, and most likely it's the lying aspect, because Joe Musgrove, he's so difficult to predict. Like I said, he's all over the place, wide range of outcomes. He is the most popular pitcher on the slate on DK today. At least in terms of our projections. We currently have him projected for 46.1% projected ownership. Over on FanDuel, we have him projected also to be fairly popular, 14.5%. But there are some guys who are either close to him in ownership or a little bit more popular. So I look at that ownership on DK to start. And like I said, he's going to be my player pool. I'm going to be underweight to the field on. But the number one way that I like to pivot off of Joe Musgrove is with Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola, who's in the same price range as Musgrove, is also on the opposite side of the game. He's only projected for 30% ownership compared to 46% for Musgrove. Obviously, risky spot for Aaron Nola also. In San Diego, really tough spot. He's also better at home than on the road, so that's a concern. But, I mean, just considering there's a massive ownership gap between Nola and Musgrove, I'm going to side a little bit towards Nola for a significantly less ownership.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think on these short slates, I kind of got like in the last week or so, I feel like I've talked this curriculum a few times where value is even more subjective on the small pitching slate where there's only a few options. So an 18 could be a top 2 score from pitcher today. And even in Aaron Nola's, tough games, 15 to 18 might still be something that he muscles away. So he's he might be number 1 for me when the day is done. Right now I have a little bit more Musgrove, but the day just started for me. So I would not be stunned if I get to more Nola. I think the second highest projected pitcher is an interesting leverage point because that's somebody I refuse to roster at that rate. And I think that's probably how I get different versus the field, but I understand it, right? Jay Happ, where are you at on him?
This is the weirdest ownership of the season. And once again, I get it, right? He's going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But you're telling me Jay Happ is 45% owned on a baseball slate in 2021? That's just ridiculous to me because Happ is bad. The Pirates are bad. It's a stoppable force versus a movable object. Something has to give out. But if I'm picking a side, give me the 2% owned Pirates offense over the 45% owned Jay Happ, who, he's had a couple of good games here and there, but let's look at his numbers overall for the season. 6.03 ERA, 5.59 expected ERA, 5.26 FIP. And it's not like this is a guy who's trending upward in any significant way either. He's had a couple of one-off starts that are okay here and there, but on the whole, J-Happ sucks. The Pirates suck too, but I mean, it's really just an ownership play here where I'm looking at Happ at 45% owned. I'd rather just take my chances with Zach Allen for significantly less ownership. Kyle Freeland, Drew Smiley's come down in ownership. The way I'm looking at this right now, I'm kind of leaning towards either having Happ out of my player pool altogether or just playing him like 10% or something like that. Because I don't think it's controversial to say at all of the pitchers we have that are cheap here. Zach Allen better than J Happ, agree?
100%.
Drew Smiley better than J Happ, agree?
Yes, but not a snap call in as a vote of confidence for Smiley, but more so like Happ is a bum.
Yeah. Kyle Freeland better than J Happ, correct?
Yeah.
So it's just this thing where these guys, Happ is 45% owned. These guys are all like 6 to 10% owned. And I'd just rather take my chance with them. And by the way, he's also more expensive than all these guys. Kyle Freeland is $1,900 less expensive than J Happ. Do we feel good about rostering pitchers at Coors Field? No, but who feels good about 45% on J Happ? So, I mean, if we're talking about some of these cheaper price ranges, actually, I like the Coors Field pitchers even more so than I normally would. And I know that I'm somebody who kind of plays these guys from time to time, certainly more than you have in some of these slates we've done. But Zach Allen, Kyle Freeland, or any of these guys you're looking at as SP2s on the slate.
Yeah, Gallen, definitely somebody. I really tend to want guys that have a little bit of strikeout in them. I know he had strikeouts against this Pirates team, and in that singular game, his swing and strike rate was at a staggering 10% versus his usual 7%. But he's still not, inherently a strikeout guy. He's a fastball throwing pitcher. At least with a guy like Zach Gallen, this guy gets his strikeouts. Maybe I want his swing and strike rate to be a little bit higher, but I know that's a type of pitcher he is. So I don't know. Happ is one of those guys who give up just 3 earnings and his ceiling is so low because he has very little strikeout propensity. So yeah, Gallen for sure.
By the way, if you guys are playing on the early slate, Chas McCormick was just scratched from the Astros lineup. So if you have any lineups with him, get them out. I am going to just do a global swap right here. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's just everybody becomes viable when J Happ is 45% owned and in this cheaper price range. It's just everybody kind of ends up being a better play for that reason. So take the numbers in our top pitcher stool, for instance, which is free to use over at Awesemo.com today. J Happ is projected for 45% ownership with a 22% chance to be a top 2 scoring pitcher on the slate. Now, 22% chance at 7,600, that in itself makes somebody a good play, not when they're 45% owned. And then since he's so over-owned, Zach Allen is 12% owned with a 21% chance to be a top 2 pitcher. Drew Smiley, 7% chance, 7% ownership, 18% chance. Kyle Freeland, 7% chance, 7% projected ownership, 14% chance to be a top 2 pitcher. Happ is so over-owned that every single other pitcher in this cheap price range then becomes under-owned for that reason. So my play here is to get away from Happ, go to some of these other guys. I don't feel good about it, but I mean, just based on the ownership, I think that is the way to go. So does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, no, I play the numbers here. Like you said, I probably don't I'm not completely off of J Happ as a pitcher in mass entry. It definitely wouldn't be somebody I'll probably load up on single entries just because he's 40% owned, and I feel like I can push back. Even a good Happ game could be 12 DKP. But yeah, there's no way I get to 45% J Happ. That's crazy.
It is certainly a steep number to a steep number to get to, where even if you're on Hap, I think that he's type of guy that's pretty difficult to get to at over 50%, which is what you really need to be overweight to the field based on the current ownership. And maybe that'll end up adjusting or changing as the day goes on. But on the top end, we haven't talked about actually my favorite pitcher, the one I feel the most confident in. That's Eduardo Rodriguez. Home matchup today against the Texas Rangers. And, Eduardo Rodriguez relative to these other top pitching options, I love the matchup against Texas. And compared to Joe Musgrove, who's been wildly inconsistent, is going up against the Phillies. Aaron Nola, who also has struggled on the road this year, is going up against the Padres. I feel the best about Eduardo Rodriguez in both FanDuel and DraftKings. He's my favorite pitcher to pay up for. How about for you?
Yeah, same. Actually, I was just asking myself if Erod on this slate with the options, if he was 10.5K, he'd probably still be my highest owned pitcher. So an extra vote of confidence. I've also been privy to guys that are a little bit cheaper on DK than FanDuel because I just feel like that means they're even greater value. And I'd sign up for 9,500 Erod. He's definitely going to be one of my top three with the Musgrove and Nola. But in this spot, he is, I don't know if you saw this, but the Red Sox were minus 350 favorites. And, that's about as high as it comes. So a lot of confidence in his offense to scoop him up a win. So maybe take a little bit of the edge off. He can attack the zone a little bit more and continue to be just nuts, almost a 30% K rate. Or actually at home this year, it's been at 31%, but 29% on the season. The only time he really has a sour game, it seems like, is when, he had a headache in the early innings here. I think this matchup is soft enough for him to be the number one scoring pitcher, at least the number two, top two scoring pitcher a lot. Like if I had to create the obscure number, it'd probably be almost half the time when you run this slate. He's definitely my favorite. Should probably be my highest owned pitcher when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with him. 29.1% K rate, career best, 7.2% walk rate, career low. The 4.97 ERA on the year is not good, except it's mostly a factor of bad luck. 66% strand rate, 357 BABIP, all unlucky numbers. On the whole, this has been a really strong year for Eduardo Rodriguez. Love the matchup. I feel less concerned about him than I do about Musgrove and Nola, and those guys kind of all get grouped together. But now jumping over to FanDuel for a second, because we have a couple of other pitchers to consider. Zach Thompson, who's going to be starting for the Marlins. I'll start by saying not somebody I'm interested in. Wade Miley on FanDuel, I don't get this ownership. It's a strong matchup against the Marlins, but Wade Miley is 8,800 and he's 17.8% owned on FanDuel. So at least with Joe Musgrove, he's inconsistent, but I know there's strikeout upside if he pitches well. Aaron Nola, also there's upside there. Like Wade Miley is higher owned than Eduardo Rodriguez on FanDuel today, 8,800. I just don't see a realistic enough upside to really want to get to Wade Miley.
Yeah, I think it was Wade Miley last time. Was it Miley against the Cubs maybe? Where I also didn't feel like I was in agreement with the field in terms of who Wade Miley is in and of himself. Let me see what that last game for Miley. And he ended up actually being like really, really solid at the end of the day. I don't want to get too like results oriented or game log chasey, but the matchup is a matchup where it wouldn't stun me if he had a decent outing. Yeah, it was the Cubs. He went 7 strong, 7 strikeouts. So that's not really who Miley is. He's more of a contact guy. 10% swing strike rate on the season, just a 19% overall K rate. ERA has definitely outperformed his expected metrics. The Sierra, the xFIPs are high. I guess the expected ERA is still decently low. Like maybe he's better than I give him credit for, but on the in terms of what we need for DFS, and when we have these other options like on FanDuel that are not pitching in Great American Ballpark with strikeout potential, with massive money lines in his favor, like he definitely wouldn't be probably top 3 for me. I would want to get to him, but not at such an aggressive rate because I don't feel like the average game is him being a strikeout per inning. But I understand it. This Marlins lineup is pretty meager.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is I just look at the other pitchers who are in this price range, and also that Wade Miley's priced up on FanDuel. And the question then becomes, who has the most upside of Joe Musgrove, Wade Miley, Aaron Nola, and Eduardo Rodriguez? Musgrove probably has the most upside just based on what we've seen out of his ceiling. Eduardo Rodriguez, I think, is the highest combination of floor and ceiling. To me, amongst those four, and by the way, these guys are all very similarly owned. They're all like 14 to 19% on FanDuel. So you're splitting hairs in terms of ownership, and you're just really talking about who is the best play of the group. And I just think that it should be unquestioned that Wade Miley, while he's safe against Miami, I don't think he has nearly the same upside as an Aaron Nola, Eduardo Rodriguez, or Joe Musgrove. So Wade Miley to win a GPP, the way I see that happening would have to be Musgrove and Nola both struggle, and Eduardo Rodriguez maybe gets a quick hook or something like that against the Rangers, because I don't see Wade Miley just being this guy who goes out like 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, no runs for Wade Miley. I think his odds of success are very dependent on other guys failing as opposed to him having a big game.
Yeah, there is something to be said for his ability to consistently get you, the quality start and win bonus. Not the win bonus, but that's baked in points that maybe offset some of that. But yeah, just process wise, he's not a warm and fuzzy click. But I guess for what FanDuel rewards, and that's length, quality starts, wins, and a couple of strikeouts, I get it. I definitely, in a 1v1 same price, I like him over J Happ. So if Happ's going to have a little bit of trendiness over there, I'd rather just turn all that into Miley. But yeah, I'm a sucker for the upside, the high strikeout game. So Erod, Musgrove, Nola would be ranked above it.
All right. And then we've got, the rest of the pitchers here: Jordan Lyles, Matt Harvey, Dylan Peters, not guys that I anticipate getting to. If you guys have any questions about any of the pitchers or anything, throw it into the Slack chat, throw it into the YouTube chat. But Lyles, Harvey, Peters, any of these guys, anything you're interested in?
Do you get 4 strong innings of Matt Harvey and then 1 really bad inning and the Brave stack or the nuts halfway through? I think that's the recipe here. No, I'm not that enamored, but with Matt Harvey, and that's not even necessarily a knock on Harvey, but I've been
it kind of is. He sucks.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of people I'd want to throw against the Braves with a DH in Camden. I don't think I would ever consider Lyles here. Nah, I think the next tier is just like, do I get to Kyle Freeland? And if I did at 57, how much? Other than that, I don't really think there's much more swimming that I'm going to be doing in these middle to low tiers.
Yeah, I'm personally going to be rostering Kyle Freeland quite a bit tonight, just based on the salary savings he offers. And hey, over the course of the year, Kyle Freeland's been a profitable play, because think about the times that we've rostered him on some of these Saturday shows. I've been on him; he was like 1% owned against chalky offenses, and he goes out and scores like 20 fantasy points. And that happens like twice over the course of the season. It's a plus EV play to be playing that guy at 1% owned every day. So I feel like Kyle Freeland's already made me my money this year, but still going back to the well here, just based on the other options we have. So anything else you want to add in terms of pitchers before we get over the offenses?
No, I didn't. I think Drew Smyly is probably the guy that I'm not sure what I'm doing with yet. Talked about, I don't have any confidence in J Happ. I'm not really excited there. I think he's a stocking stuffer back end. Drew Smyly is one of those guys I feel like, just to diversify mass entry, I got to get some. I really don't know how much, because this is not somebody I think is that good. I think he has more strikeout DNA than J Happ, but he also has an ability to get smacked with the best of them. So I'm kind of waiting for that Orioles lineup to be the tiebreaker. But how confident or lack of confidence do you possess in terms of Drew Smyly at Camden Yards?
So here's what I like about him, for starters, compared to the strategy show that I did with Adam, 4 hours ago now. Here's where Smyly looks different. Earlier in the day when we did that show, there was a lot more ownership going to Smyly, and now that ownership's come down, also on FanDuel, if you're looking for a pivot play, the Orioles are now projected to be the 3rd most popular offense on FanDuel. We've got number 1 being the Boston Red Sox, 2 the Braves, 3 the Baltimore Orioles. So do the Orioles really warrant being the 3rd most rostered offense on this slate? To me, probably not. So I think there's a little bit of reason to think that there's leverage there. Then also for DK purposes, once again, his ownership's come down quite a bit to where he was double-digit owned earlier in the day, and now he's single-digit ownership. So he's going to be in my player pool. I'll say relative to ownership, I prefer him to J Happ. But that's because J Happ's in 50% of the field's lineups. I have no confidence in Drew Smyly, though, which I kind of feel like was what your question was. My favorite of the cheap pitchers is actually Kyle Freeland.
Yeah. Yeah. No. All right. So I think I'll stuff Smiley and J Happ in the trunk, and I won't pop it until I'm like in my 120th lineup.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just the outlook of the slate. That is what it is. By the way, guys, do us a favor. We got our guy El Negro Loco. He's in the YouTube chat right now. Smash the like button. Absolutely, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel because there is not only baseball content. We've got MMA live before lock coming up later. We've got NFL DFS live before lock, and over the next coming weeks, we're gonna have just every sport on the YouTube channel. So you're gonna want to subscribe, hit the notification bell because it's free content. You'll know when the shows all go live. I'm also going to let's give out some pitcher bets here. How do you feel about that, Gundacker?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh, we're going to like this. I'm going to like this anyway. The number one prop bet we have for today, it is Zach Allen for the night games. Anyway, the early games, there was guys like Garrett Cole. We like the under for him. Dallas Keuchel also like the under for his strikeouts. But for the night slate, the number one pitcher prop that we have here is Zach Allen over 5.5 strikeouts. It's also plus 125, depending what book you're looking at. So it's not like we need this to hit 50, well over 50% of the time. We have it projected at 59% of the time, but at plus 125, Zach Allen for over 5.5 strikeouts. What do you make of him relative to the strikeout number? I mean,
let's see, 90. Yeah, I give him 90 pitches in my model and gives him almost 7.5. He's a guy that about 5.5 pitches per out. 7. Yeah, I'd be over on that, especially if I can get a little bit of value with the plus money on it.
Yeah, plus money, and that is something our betting model likes quite a bit. 23% expected ROI right now on the over 5.5 strikeouts for Zach Allen. So that is personally something that I bet on. And I think that is probably the best prop bet for the night games because everything else in terms of pitchers looks about fair. Some of the other value, like I said, was on the earlier games. We had Garrett Cole for under 8.5 strikeouts. That at 20% ROI. Dallas Keuchel under 4.5 strikeouts. That at a 29% ROI. But those games are already underway, and those pitches are probably done by now. But let's move on to the hitters now for tonight. And I think the number one place we have to start here is with these really popular offenses, because one thing that has changed a little bit from this morning, although actually more so on FanDuel, not really DraftKings, there's 5 really popular offenses, and then everybody else is basically going unowned. So the Cardinals, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Red Sox, the Braves. These teams are all projected for 15+% ownership on DK. Over on FanDuel, the Red Sox are far and above everybody else with 21% projected ownership. But for the most part, we have 5 popular offenses. Of that group, I'll read them to you again. Which is your favorite? Cardinals, Rockies, Diamondbacks, Red Sox, Braves.
Red Sox.
It is the Braves for me. I don't have an issue with Boston. We have them about appropriately owned. But I mean, for me, we have these teams. The Braves are projected to be the best odds of being a top stack. Is a matchup against Matt Harvey, who had a stretch where he was, pretty decent for a little while, but he's giving up a lot of hard contact again. Strikeouts have started to dwindle a little bit, and just the home runs is always been an issue with Matt Harvey. So the Braves, who are currently projected for a little bit less ownership than those teams, actually of the 5 I mentioned, although we're splitting hairs, they're all 15 to 17% owned. So the Braves are my favorite of the bunch, mostly because of the matchup against Matt Harvey.
Yeah, it was between the Braves and the Red Sox for me. I just went Red Sox just because Jordan Lyle's a little bit more of a guaranteed contact guy. I'm definitely am a Matt Harvey guy, but he has played spoiler a little bit in the last, 4 or 5 starts where he ended up melting down that last start. But there was a couple starts where he was just John Lestering me, and I was just annoyed. But
I just rostered him last start.
Maybe that's what it was. I needed you. But yeah, I just like I feel like the Red Sox are guaranteed to just smash the Rangers here. But yeah, Braves and Red Sox are my top 2 favorite stacks without a doubt. So I'll be really, really heavy on both because I think on this slate, the ownership is going to be extremely concentrated in bunches because of how small it is. And when you turn this into like a 3-pitcher slate and you only have 5 games that, now you have 10 teams. Now you have like 7 teams because of the 3 pitchers. these high offenses are just naturally going to get ridiculous ownership. But I'm just kind of glad that I'm being given J Happ, right? That's how I get different, is not play J Happ.
Listen, you're playing 150 lineups and you're either playing, a small amount of J Happ or not playing him at all. That's already something that's going to massively differentiate your player pool. And something else also, even if you want to pay for one of these more popular offense, like if you're playing on FanDuel and you like the Red Sox as a stack at 21%, you can just play one of these less popular pitchers and you're on something that's really different. Over on DK, if you want to play Boston, who they have less ownership, 15.8% projected ownership, everybody's going to be rostering the Red Sox with Happ for the salary savings. If you roster anybody else other than Happ with Boston, chances are you have a pretty contrarian lineup. It's just something people aren't doing. So, I think the pitchers, like you said, that's what's going to really differentiate us. I have no problem with Boston. My favorite is Atlanta here, although my second favorite is Boston. So we're really splitting hairs. But Braves, Boston, to me, those are a tier above the other ones. My least favorite stack of these five teams is the St. Louis Cardinals. Once again, those teams, the Braves, the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Cardinals. It's a good spot for the Braves for sure. Again, for the Cardinals against Dylan Peters. But this is still a team I just can't put in quite the same category as these other teams, meaning the Braves and the Red Sox both have better offenses. The Diamondbacks and the Rockies, they're playing at Coors Field. But the Cardinals then are just a team who, by the way, we have as the most negatively leveraged offense on the night slate. We have them 17.7% projected ownership, but only a 9.1% chance to be a top stack. So they just rate out much worse than all these other teams. And it just makes sense to me. They aren't the same offense that the Red Sox and Braves are. They don't have the same park factors that the Rockies and Diamondbacks have. So I'm looking to cut ownership somewhere in these high-owned offenses, and to get overweight on a team like the Braves or the Red Sox, I'm going to be dialing back the Cardinals. But how do you feel about them tonight?
Yeah, I think the wild card with the Cardinals is the unknown. Not so much the unknown, but Dylan Peters hasn't had a big league sample to trust, right? 1.2 innings last year, 4.2 so far this year. So when I dig into his minor league numbers, he was a really average, I would say an average pitcher ERA wise, but the strikeout stuff was there. Against righties, I got 39 innings listed with 49 strikeouts, so over a strikeout per inning. And against lefties, a strikeout per inning, a 250-ish average allowed. The whip is over 1, so it's not like somebody that's an incredible pitcher, but it still looks like he is a more of a strikeout pitcher than not. He did have a home run bug in the minors to both sides of the plate, so that could play here. If it does, it does. But you can see the park kind of suppressing a couple of those fly balls, and then maybe he does wiggle his way through some bats. And basically, if you're just looking at his big league sample from this year, you're going to see a 6% strikeout rate and 8 xFIP. Basically, there's only room for progression on those numbers if you expect them to look a little bit more like the minor league version of him. So maybe that's a spot to not be too bullish on, especially if the field's going to be there. So I agree with you. The Cardinals were the team I didn't know what to do with. And also, like, Dylan Peters was a pitcher I didn't know what to do with, because at 5,200, I don't mind an SP2 shot at that. Like you like some Kyle Freeland, maybe in this park point, he could be a strikeout per inning and still 5 innings, something like that. So I think the Cardinals aren't as much of a lock as maybe the perception is.
Yeah, and to me, it's also a thing where it's like, hey, I have to rely on our numbers a little bit. And we have the Cardinals rated out as the worst team to stack by a pretty wide margin on the night slate. So this is a team that, as one-offs, there's a bunch of cheap Cardinals hitters that I think are sensible to get to. I just don't think I'm going to be going out there and making stacks of this team. But as far as one-offs go, and we do have the Cardinals lineup out now, and it is the back end of this lineup really sucks. But the top of the order, they do have some quality hitters. Tommy Edmonds, only 3,500 on DK. Tyler O'Neill, 3,500. Then obviously there's Goldschmidt and Arenado. But all of those guys are right around 20% owned. Then you get to the bottom of the order. It's Harrison Bader, 18% owned. We've got Edmundo Sosa, 12% owned. Lars Nootbaar, 7% owned. I don't think any of those guys are particularly good hitters. So it's a very top-loaded lineup for the Cardinals. And I'm not going to be rostering Dylan Peters personally, but Cardinals, I'll be rostering some of these guys as one-offs, but basically every hitter I'm going to be underweight to the field on.
Yeah, that's likely where I'm at. I think the Cardinals, we've seen them in great spots, especially against lefties, a lot throughout the duration of the season. and their success rate of coming through as a full send stack is probably a lot lower than their ownership today. So I'd be with you on the cherry pick side. You can always give me some Goldie, Arenado, Tyler O'Neill against lefties. O'Neill, of course, is going to project very well across the industry in terms of home run models. He's actually at the highest, right, inch above JD Martinez in mine today. So maybe somebody I lean on, because I do think he's probably too cheap, right? 3,500 to back cleanup behind some of those names. Yeah, I could get into that, but I don't need to full send 4 or 5 men here. I can grab a couple and go.
All right, so I think I'm going to throw out a question for you. I think you know me pretty well at this point. There is a basically unowned offense I like today. Can you guess which one it is?
Let's see. I like this game.
People who are in the YouTube chat that listen to the show this morning will know what it is.
I would say, so based on the conversation that we've had so far, is it the Pirates against J-Happ?
Oh, you better believe it's the Pirates against that trash can J-Happ. And it's mostly just an ownership thing. If J-Happ is going to maintain this 50%, 40% ownership heading into lock, if I'm not playing him at that point, it has to mean I think the Pirates are going to have some sort of success against him. And relative to some of the other pitchers that are on this slate, we've talked about these cheap pitchers. We don't feel good about any of them, really. It's not out of the realm of possibility that all of them suck, and then you just get 18 fantasy points from Aaron Nola, 20 fantasy points from Joe Musgrove, 20 from Eduardo Rodriguez. Maybe those guys just end up being optimal, and then you start to say, all right, what has to happen to fit those guys into a lineup together? And, maybe that is you play the Pittsburgh Pirates, they get 5 or 6 runs, and maybe that is enough to land them in a top lineup in tournaments just because they're cheap, and all of the good pitchers, the only 3 good pitchers we have on the slate, are all pretty expensive. So I'm trying to find ways that I could get up to the guys I actually feel good about. And one of the ways that makes sense to the Pirates, they offer great leverage off of J-Happ. Do I think the Pirates are good? No, but I don't think Happ is good either. And we have the Pirates with no ownership, Happ with a ton of ownership. So that's the side I'm going to be taking here. I'm going to be siding with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the correct mathematical process. It is something that makes you feel a little bit more when you look at this Pirates lineup. I think Sasugo might be the most overrated hitter of all time. He's playing cleanup today in a negative split for him. But yeah, I would agree. Like J-Happ, if you're fading him, the logic being he's not good, so you're leaving the door open for him to maybe get hit out the game. Brian Hayes, Reynolds, Stallings, guys that stick out to me. My God, this lineup is not good.
It's bad. It's no good. It's no good.
Bad. But yeah, I'm with you there. The leverage right to self, that would be like a really fun single entry stack, huh? To really leverage the ownership.
That's what I'm going to be doing. But for me, it's Pirates and Braves. I think those are the 2 stacks relative to ownership that I like the most today. So, hey, Pirates. Like you said, I don't feel good about it at all. But based on the current ownership data, I feel different. And what's funny is, because baseball, so much of it is we're not predicting outcomes, we're predicting range of outcomes. Yeah. And if we were to find out, 10 minutes from now that J-Happ is 10% owned and the Pirates are 20% owned, Zach, then I'd be on the Happ side. Yeah. It's really just relative to what the field is doing. So don't feel great about it, but that's where my process is going to lead me, is onto teams like this. So you mentioned, I think, the best plays there, Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds, for sure. Those are the 2 best guys to roster in this lineup. And even them, they're only 3% owned today. So even if you're not comfortable making full stacks of the Pirates, I would recommend, if you play a bunch of lineups, use some Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds as one-offs in lineups where you're not rostering J-Happ. So that's where I really feel here. But let's get to some more pleasant offenses to talk about. We haven't really discussed the Coors Field game yet, other than just, in passing. It's just kind of a neutral spot for me. I'm going to be rostering the pitchers overweight to the field. The offenses, I'm going to be about even with the field. I'm not taking a massive stand there. The offenses are not particularly good, but it is Coors Field, where there's always upside because of the park factor. So how are you approaching Coors today?
Yeah, Rockies are still the highest scoring home team in baseball. And Coors Field has been Coors Field lately. Looks like the temps are in the 80s versus the 90s that we've seen the last couple of days, but it's still, Coors Field can activate at any point, so even if it's not with these starters. This is a field that can go nuts in the 5th, 6th inning. And we've talked about it before. What are these prices? You don't get taxed for Coors Field anymore. And, even if you're only getting half a game and it's the back half, the opportunity cost is so low. Outside of Ketel Marte, the D-backs are virtually all 3K except Carson Kelly. And then on the Rocky side, I just said this is the number one home team in baseball, and we've got one guy over 5K. So I wish I was a little bit more priced out of interest, but I'm not. This is just still too easy to get to on a short slate at that, to where I have to invest it. And then obviously we're gonna look at ownerships and leverage that information, and the Rockies are about where they should be. So do we just, add a couple of percent to that and try to get ourselves some leverage? Or are you comfortable with it? Even the field, we got 17%, right? So is that something that you like?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be about even with the field on the Rockies. The matchup against Zach Gallen, overall, I think Gallen's a pretty solid pitcher. Adam made a good point on the strategy show this morning that Gallen has some subpar results as of late. He's had a brutal strength of schedule over the last month. He's basically only faced the Giants and the Padres. So that's a really tough strength of schedule. And the Rockies obviously don't present the same challenges that those offenses do, but it's a Coors Field game. So the Rockies, I'm going to be out overweight to the field on. The Diamondbacks likely a little bit under, but overall neutral plays for me. I look at the high end, and I'm probably going to be a little bit overweight to the field on the Red Sox, heavy overweight to the field on the Braves, heavy underweight to the field on the Cardinals, and then go about neutral on the Rockies and Diamondbacks. That's probably going to make up my my ownership to the high end offenses today. So I think I explained that properly. That all makes sense.
Yeah, and you mentioned strength of schedule. I actually talked quite a bit about that this morning about Reed Detmers. He is a guy that his first three games was like the Athletics, I think it was the Astros, the Red Sox, and his minor numbers were better. And I do think in baseball, strength of schedule gets lost on the casual user because we're just so programmed to look at the results. But even those teams could impact the advanced metrics, the xFIP and batted ball data and something like that. So you expect more positive progression or regression depending on the results. And I think Gallen's a great case study because he has been a really good pitcher in the past with a really, really good strikeout stuff. So I'm definitely fine with, banking on him to project better going forward in more plus to neutral matchups.
Yeah. And it's and by the way, cause I know Sean V in the YouTube chat, not very high on Zach Gallen. The ERA, sure, it's high, but you look at his projections the rest of the year, and it's all significantly better than what his ERA is this year, and also his underlying numbers. He does have a 5.03 ERA, but he's a 3.98 expected ERA. And then you look at Zips the rest of the year, has him projected for a 4.02 ERA, Steamer 3.85 ERA. So for the most part, projection models expect him to be an above-average guy. The key thing here also, the strikeout stuff. He generates a lot of swing and misses, 26.7% K rate this year, 27.9% overall for his career. Always been a good strikeout guy. Coors Field, obviously always going to give us pause. But look, I mean, ultimately what I'm saying is that I prefer Zach Gallen to the ownership that's getting to J Happ, and I'm just going to be neutral to the field on the Rockies. So it's not like they're an offense I'm avoiding.
Yeah. ERA, get out of here. I a little bit. I'm not comfortable with the environment and the spot, but yeah, I'm definitely fine with projecting to be better. And then with the Rockies, Greg, the D-backs have one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball right now. So even if Gallen is a strong 4 or 5 innings and then a little sluggish in the sixth, they could at these prices get payoff on a cycle of at bats in the 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, and it's also, whatever. Coors Field here, once again, I'm neutral on the offenses today. My real preference on the high end is the Atlanta Braves. That's going to be my most stacked team today. But let's go through some of these other teams that are just kind of in the mix, but are not ones that are especially interesting to me, the ones that we've not yet discussed. Baltimore Orioles, Texas Rangers, not going to be on Texas State against Eduardo Rodriguez. Baltimore Orioles, whatever, fine to get to them against Smiley, but they're going to be really popular. And then obviously the Phillies, Padres, also teams in fairly tough matchups. But any other teams you're really looking to stack aggressively?
Not for good reasons, not that I think they're in good spots, but I do on shorter slates with much higher concentrated ownership, particularly on the pitcher side. So the most recent example, the other night, Brandon Woodruff, right? He was 60, 70% owned. So for me, whenever a pitcher gets that high owned, you talked about baseball and the numbers and the failure rates. I always have some YOLO stacks against the 60 to 70% owned pitchers. So if we do get a Musgrove or a Erod or somebody like that pushing 60, 70, I'll probably still be there on the ownership, but I'm going to make sure to leverage that type of ownership with 4% of a stack against that. So that's why we were kind of talking about the Pirates. But if some more steam generated for even a Erod, who's my favorite pitcher, and same with just Joe Musgrove, if those guys start pushing those egregious ownerships, then I'm going to have some what the heck stacks in the back of my pocket just in case all hell broke loose.
Yeah, and once again, it's a 5-game slate on DK, 6-game slate on FanDuel. So if you're playing 150 lineups, it's probably prudent at this kind of at this size of slate to at least have one stack of everybody just based on mathematical, but not teams that I'm going to be targeting very heavily on the low end. But one more thing, because we've got some time here to play with on the show, but Sean V is coming back at you about the Arizona bullpen. Arizona is the worst bullpen in baseball. They have they're the only team with negative wins above replacement from their bullpen. Their bullpen is so bad this year, and this is across everybody on the team. Over 464 innings, they would be better with just AAA players based on the numbers we have on them.
Yeah.
Sean V, I know that he is an ERA guy. The bullpen 5.31 ERA. The underlying numbers, they have a 4.85 FIP. That is last in baseball. 4.89 xFIP, also last in baseball. I know he says they've been better lately. I'll have to bring up, I don't know off the top of my head all the individual, like week by week, month by month bullpen stats. But the good thing is we have all this on FanGraphs, so I could look it up. But all right, so over the last 2 weeks, because this was the data size our guy Sean gave us. The last 2 weeks, the Arizona bullpen has a 4.73 FIP, a 5.73 xFIP, and it's still once again below replacement level. It's not a good bullpen, so it's bad.
I talk to Sean almost daily in these chats, and he's a results oriented guy. Weight some stats that maybe me and you don't weight as highly. One of my favorite stats that he brought up was a 5-game road ERA stretch for Marco Gonzalez a week or two ago. And I just and it's Sean, when it works out, like tonight, if the Rockies just score 4, he gonna let you know. And then he's going to validate his process. But I love Sean nonetheless. He's here at every stream, but definitely a much different process than I have, and I believe than you have. Yeah,
and by the way, as he probably doesn't even realize it right now, but he's become the 3rd seat on the show, at least for this particular one, because we appreciate any kind of comments we get in the YouTube chat, especially when we don't have that many games to talk about. It's good to just talk through some of these processes, some of our thought, because the other thing too is we're not going to be right all the time. There's stuff we're going to be wrong about all the time. People in the YouTube chat could be wrong or right. People in the comments, Slack chat, there's always going to be times that somebody either points something out that we kind of have to double check and look back on. So to me, I don't think Arizona has a good bullpen, even not over the last couple of weeks. That doesn't appear to be the case. So like they have a 5.73 xFIP over the last 2 weeks. That is also last in baseball. They have 4.73 FIP over the last 2 weeks. It's not last, but it's bottom 8 in baseball. So I don't think this is a particularly good bullpen. Not something I'm all that concerned about. Coors Field game. Well, here's what's going to happen. It's either going to be like a 2-1 game where it's like, oh, these offenses suck, I can't believe it, or it's going to be a 10-8 Coors Field game and be like, oh, it's Coors Field, bad offenses go off. So yeah. Just typical Coors stuff. But let's get into some home run picks now. And once again, if you guys have any questions, fire them into the YouTube chat. If you guys have questions in Slack, fire those in as well, and we'll be able to get to them. But if nobody has questions, then we can do some home run picks and wish everybody luck for the night. But all right, the famed Gundacker home run model, the people love it. The ladies go crazy for it. Who's your top home run pick today?
So the top 2 numbers on the bomb detector with more than Dylan Peters sample size is JD Martinez and Hunter Renfroe. My model, the number 4 is a special number, and if you get above it, you're good. JD Martinez is at a 4.3, and Renfroe's 4.29. So those would be the two. So if you weren't in full sending the Red Sox stack, those guys profile as a nice handcuff, if nothing else.
We've got some good synchronicity because I have pulled in front of me right now the MLB player props, which is free to use over at Awesemo.com. The number 1 home run bet for tonight's slate, Hunter Renfroe, plus 400. That is an 11% expected ROI. So, by the way, I've gotten lucky on these lately. The last 2 I gave out was Yordan Alvarez last night, and the slate before it was Freddie Freeman the night he had the cycle. So, Hunter Renfroe, we've got Gundacker and I in agreement. And by the way, this is Gundacker actually has his own information. I'm just reading off data that's given to me on the site here. So I don't make it seem like I'm doing anything as complex as you are, but at least per our betting model, Hunter Renfroe, the top home run pick. So that's got to make you feel good, right?
Yeah, I would definitely like to get in that. I would love to see him get a crazy spot in the order. I think he only bats second against lefties lately. But I mean, to pull back the curtain, the main reason I like Renfroe is we know he has power, but he's one of those power or strikeout guys. And Jordan Lyles is more of a contact guy. So it's a really good spot to neutralize his high K rate. Yeah,
I dig it. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And we do have a couple questions here to get to in the YouTube chat. First, Seth Hader is asking, is there an NFL show tonight? Yes, there's going to be NFL Live Before Lock from 6 to 7 Eastern time. Also MMA Live Before Lock. That'll be in a little bit. I'm going to be hosting that. So plenty of other shows. Also, if you guys are going to be playing NFL DFS this year, now is the time to sign up for our NFL package. We do have an early bird special. If you use the promo code BLITZ, you get 25% off an Awesemo Plus annual package. So if you're planning on doing it anyway, might as well do it now. Take advantage of the early bird special. And that is 25% off using the promo code BLITZ. And then another question here from 12S Mitchell. Favorite non-chalk stack on DK? That is the Pittsburgh Pirates for me.
Yeah. I mean, the leverage is incredible from them. So, yeah. But the names are so I hate to put my name attached to those names, but the leverage is insane for them, and it's hard to this slate, like I said, the concentrated ownership. It's hard to chalk is not 1-to-1 today versus yesterday, right? You're just gonna have 20%ers no matter what. So, I guess if we're going lower end, Atlanta is probably the lowest owned versus the success rate. So yeah, it's a cheapie, but Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's going to be my most stacked team today, but it's really weird. Like if you look at the DK ownership using our top stacks tool, there's 5 popular teams picking up all the ownership, and then 5 teams, really 4 teams not picking up ownership. There's a little bit of ownership going to Baltimore, but Cardinals, Rockies, Diamondbacks, Red Sox, Braves, all popular. Orioles, kind of somewhere in between. Then Rangers, Padres, Pirates, Phillies, no ownership going to those teams. And then just because I feel like I'm picking from basically a list of 4 teams right there to answer the question. And between the Rangers, no tough matchup. Phillies, no tough matchup. Padres, no tough matchup. Although I think there's some reason at least to get to the Padres because of Aaron Nola's road struggles. I just kind of gravitate towards the Pirates. It's a matchup against a crappy J-Hat pitcher is going to be massively popular. So by default, I land on that to answer that question. But any other questions that you guys have today that we could answer, and we'll certainly get to it. I'm going to be getting to the Slack chat, see if we have anything in there. No questions asked in the Slack chat. So any closing thoughts on you for the slate, Gundacker?
No, I think this Orioles lineup came out. It has the same names, different order. Pedro Severino went from projected 8th to 5th. So at 2.5K, even if you weren't full sending the Orioles stack, I think that's a really valuable lineup order against Smiley. Get in the middle. He's somebody that has fared just fine against lefties. Not great, but at 2.5, 260 average, 200 plus ISO since the beginning of last year. So that just kind of stuck out to me looking at the confirmed lineup. But it's the same names, just a different order than I thought.
All right, guys, good luck tonight. I hope we all survive Joe Musgrove night. Nothing more infuriating in MLB DFS. So good luck with that. Also, don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video. We've got MMA Live Before Lock and NFL Preseason Live Before Lock coming up later.